Welcome back to Business Casual. I'm your host, Nav Nanwa. Recently, the FBI was looking to Apple to get some information from smartphones related to the awful terrorist attack that took place in California, which killed 14 individuals. And it really sparked a conversation around privacy and data encryption and just whether or not that kind of data should be handed over to the authorities if they ask for it. And here to talk with me about this in further detail, I have our resident Business Casual analyst, Sushil Tailor. Sushil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, because when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about who should I bring on to really talk about this, and I remember that you are a developer when it comes to your day life. I'm sorry to expose you here over the air, but once I was like, hey Sushil, you want to come on the show and talk about this incident with Apple and the FBI? You ran to the opportunity because it's quite the topic if you think about it.
Oh, definitely. Right now, we're having a big debate on the importance of encryption and whether or not we should get in the way of privacy in order to help out with security concerns. But it looks like a lot of the debate is framed the wrong way, and it's framed the wrong way because oftentimes the FBI, lawyers, the judicial system, judges, they don't understand how the technology works, and what that often ends up happening is you end up with directives or regulations or court orders that make no sense. So I mean, if for example you wanted to regulate a car from crashing into people, assuming that's what happens, you wouldn't regulate the wheels to be square, would you? Right? And oftentimes when it comes to government policy related to technology, that's what ends up happening. You have these bureaucrats, you have these authorities going to developers and saying, well, we want you to make it like this. And then developers who, spent years learning, this stuff and learning the architecture and how things work, all they can say is, no, we can't. And, at the end of the day, with the FBI issue, they're saying, make this happen or else you guys are in trouble. And with that, you end up with a situation where nobody wins.
But based on the severity of this case, it pretty much involved a terrorist attack, and there was some key information on the perpetrator's iPhones. Do you think the FBI was justified to go to Apple and be like, look, we need your help. We want to figure out more. That information is in one of your devices. We need to sort of get around the security measures that you provide to your customers just so we can get the information that we need.
The FBI wasn't wrong to ask that. The issue really came about with the court order. When the court order said, you have to open up this iPhone. Right? And that's where Apple was absolutely justified in telling them no. And you saw Tim Cook's letter on their website. I love that letter.
It was a very well-written letter. And
so, I mean, the FBI is absolutely justified in going towards and trying to find any means to resolve their case. But so is Apple in saying no and understanding at least the underlying technologies that go into the technology, go into the iPhone. And with the court order and what the FBI was asking for, they make it seem so innocuous that, oh, we just want to access, this phone. The biggest issue here is that Apple would have had to develop a version of the iOS operating system that would give a backdoor to any government agency. In this case, FBI, but eventually any government agency would have a key into your phone.
And that iOS would be available to everybody, right?
It would how would you distribute?
Yeah, exactly.
How would you distribute some phones with the backdoor, some phones without? No, you have to install it in every phone in order to make this work. It's the only way to do it. You can't just gauge that, well, this customer is going to be a terrorist, we're going to give him this phone. Like, that's not how it happens. And that's the core issue here, that oftentimes I think the media is forgetting, and I don't necessarily blame them.
There was one quote that was going, that's actually going around still, as this issue continues, and that's, you need to give up a little privacy for increased security. There's always that sense of fear, and people assume that there needs to be a trade-off if you want to feel safe. And in this instance, it's people's privacy. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely disagree.
Okay.
And I have a very good reason. It's
Okay.
not some sort of necessarily principled reason. The core reason as to why that entire statement is false is because it's based on a false dichotomy. At the end of the day, privacy is your largest defense on the internet. With technologies, privacy and security and encryption security is the greatest form of security we have.
Yeah.
So when they say we need to give up a little bit of privacy in order to have more security, in what sense does that make sense? None. The core reason here is, let's imagine for a second you had a backdoor on every phone, which is what the FBI wanted. Certainly, through the FBI's eyes, that would increase security. I would argue otherwise. If everybody has a backdoor on their phone, malicious hackers will realize this. Malicious hackers will hack this, and then malicious hackers will abuse, will essentially abuse this the backdoor. They will essentially abuse this backdoor, and that's the key issue we have. And what else? What do you do with your phone, for example? You use it for banking in some instances, or accessing your bank account. You use it for email.
Exactly.
Two of the biggest things that you don't want anybody to have access to.
Especially with now the way smartphones are going, and it's almost eliminating a wallet because you can get your credit card now on your phone. There's so much information in that one device that as soon as a company like Apple decides that they want to put a backdoor on their iOS, it puts a lot in question.
Yeah, imagine if for your own house, to protect you from people, perhaps in your for your own house to protect you from people, the FBI or the government came to you and said, well, we want a key to your house. We want a master key that we can open every house door with. How would you feel about that, right? For government officials to come knocking at your door. That's happening essentially with phones.
We talked about Tim Cook's infamous letter that he released when...
I'd say famous.
I'd say famous, yeah, quite a bit, yeah.
It's a great letter.
It's a great... No bias there. One thing I'll say, though, from a company standpoint, it was a very powerful stance that Apple took. That letter went viral, as soon as it was out. And, do you feel like Apple, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Based on your answer, do you feel Apple made the right decision with formally sending a letter out from their CEO, putting their stance out there?
Sure.
Yeah.
What ended up happening with the court order is a lot of court orders tend to be public, especially in a case like this where it's just after the fact, of a criminal after the crime has happened. So, to assuage fears, internationally especially, that the FBI is not going to be going into everybody, have access to every iPhone on Earth, they really did have to come out and say, well, we're in favor of encryption, we're in favor of your security. And say that to the users, because that's effectively who they are beholden to.
What about the concept around business versus brand? If you think about Apple, this brave move that they did, pretty much saying that they're disagreeing with the FBI and they're not going to comply.
Yeah.
And then you look at just the importance of companies having government relations, especially now that we're in the midst of an election year in the United States. And the perception of people really matters in this instance. Do you think this was the right move to make, looking at it at that lens? Do you think it maybe sort of tarnishes any leverage power that Apple might have when it comes to the government and just being able to pass certain regulations on their products?
It could.
Yeah.
It very well could. But at the end of the day, a lot of the folks that handle regulations, you have many departments.
Yes.
So a lot of those departments that they deal with on probably a day-to-day basis, that they lobby, probably not the FBI. It's probably the Federal Communications Commission. And they might have different needs that are more consumer-focused than are the needs of the FBI. So I wouldn't be too worried on that end, on FBI's end, namely because the government isn't a monolithic force. It's a conglomeration of different bureaucracies when we're talking outside of the actual governing parties in there.
Sushil, I'm going to ask you to put your developer cap on, and I'm going to ask you a question around data encryption and just the role it plays in protecting one's information. Right as of now, can this information be easily leaked?
Which information in particular?
Personal information. So the information I have on my iPhone, is it very easy for a hacker or for an individual to get that information without Apple making an effort for it to
I'll
be?
say this, nothing is ever secure.
Okay.
Anything you put online is not secure. The most secure thing to do is to write your personal information down and probably put it underneath your bed.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do, I'd say. But with the moment you put something online, there is a chance that that's going to get leaked.
Yeah.
Somehow, somewhere. And what a lot of these tech companies are doing is they're just effectively playing catch up over and over again. Malicious hackers get into something, they have to catch up and they have to patch it. That's why you get updates, you know, almost every week.
Oh, for sure.
Not even every week, sometimes every other day.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using Windows. Right.
There's always an update. I swear. They always tell me to restart.
Yeah, but it's for your own good.
Yes.
They're always monitoring, you know, where the flaws are, where the vulnerabilities are. And the reason for that is their code bases are massive. They have a lot of people programming on this, and nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
It's all humans developing this stuff, and humans make mistakes. And as a result, nothing is ever truly secure. Perhaps the most secure thing would be blockchains, but that's a completely different conversation to have. But that technology isn't as prevalent yet. And even then, for a blockchain security to work properly, all the data, or not the data, but the hash tables and everything have to be public for everybody to see.
Excellent. Well, Sushil, I want to thank you for joining us here on Business Casual to talk about this issue. Yes or no, is there a mutually beneficial solution here?
No. Unlike you know, the legal system where there are gray areas everywhere, you don't have that. You don't have that luxury with code. It's either true or false, zeros and ones. And if you want to make something partially encrypted, you know, encrypted for some people but not encrypted for other people, that's a very, very difficult thing to implement.
Excellent. Well, we are running out of time. I want to thank you again for joining us here on Business Casual. Thank you for your expertise, and I will certainly bring you back again to talk about this issue, because I'm sure it's not the end of it.
No, there's going to be tech politics forever.
Thank you for tuning into Business Casual this week. We will see you again here next week on Rogers TV.